Hello, and welcome to the Higher Expectations Podcast with the Higher Advantage, and where you'll hear from Ron, Michael, and Josh, a multi-generational real estate family in Southern California. Today, we'll uncover gems and insights on how to grow your wealth and live greatly. And today's guest is Billy Fairchild. My co-host today is Joshua Vigil. And today, before we start asking questions, Billy. Speaking of grilling. Hey, Josh, what were you grilling over the weekend?
Oh, man, I'm glad you asked. 22-pound brisket for my nephew's first birthday, your grandson.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it came out really good. Have a lot saved over for our upcoming camping trip.
Yeah. Let's see, how big was it?
It was 22 pounds.
And how long did you cook that?
27 hours.
27 hours. That's why it came out so tender.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah, Billy messaged me actually on Instagram, was like, I'm excited to see what it looks like when it comes out. So,
yeah, and I was not disappointed. It looked amazing, and I'm really jealous you got to eat it. So,
yeah. So Josh took it out of the grill, and then he wrapped it up and put it in a cooler, and wrapped it and let it sit for another hour. Just make us drool for an hour before we could eat it. Yeah,
I put it in an ice chest. They say you let it rest, but it also gives the meat some time to reabsorb some of those juices. And actually, I think Ron taught me that when he did it with his ribs. Ron makes a killer rib.
It came so good.
They always come out juicy and tender. So I kind of adapted that to my briskets.
Well, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a podcast about Billy Fairchild and Consumer's Title. We'll get back to Billy now. I was sidetracked there. So how did you get into the title business, Billy?
So do you want the full story or do you want the partial story?
No, we like the whole story.
The whole story. Okay, so the whole story. So I'll start with this. I was at my friend's house. My friend's Austin, who's also in title as well. I was at his house and we're hanging out, and his dad, who's been in the business for, at that time, I think 30 plus years, he came to me and said, "Hey, Billy, I got a job for you." Now, mind you, before I got into title, I was flipping burgers over at In-N-Out.
So how old were you then?
I was, I think 21 or 22 years old when he came up to me and approached me, and he said, "Hey," actually at the time I was 21 years old. He said, "Billy, I got a job for you." And I said, "Okay, I'm interested. I see that you have a nice house. You work really hard. You have a great family. I'm interested. I want to hear you out." And so he introduced me to title insurance. And so I followed up with him and I said, "Hey, Gene, I want to follow up with you. When can we do that ride along?" And I did a ride along with him, and I was hooked. I was able to see how he was able to interact with people. I was able to see how he was able to conduct his business and work on his own time. Like, that's what I want. Again, I came from a background of In-N-Out. My whole family did In-N-Out, as you know.
Yeah.
My dad's been in the business for In-N-Out going on 47 years. My uncle retired with 46 years. My mom was one of the first female trainers at In-N-Out, and I have cousins in management. I can go down the line. So for me to get out of In-N-Out, it was a huge step for me. And to be able to go into this position that I'm in now, it was really unique. But what got Gene to offer me that job, we were at a mutual friend's barbecue, and I was sitting down with his wife, and her and I were having a great conversation. And I kid you not, this is what got me the job. I offered her my jacket. It was cold, and I said, "Hey, would you like my jacket?" And she took it, and she told me that on the drive home that night, she said, Gene, if you have a job opening for anybody, you hire Billy." And that's awesome. Literally how I got offered that job.
Oh, that's consideration goes a long way.
Yeah, it really does. It's the small things that count. It really is.
Yeah. So one thing for me, when I met you, Billy, I met you obviously through Ron and stuff. And then I've worked with your guys' company. A lot of my clients use your guys' company for their title insurance. One thing that has always stuck out to me about you is your infectious energy. Like, you have an energy about you that not everybody has, but it's very infectious. When you're around it, people want to be around you, and you always make people feel very good about themselves. Where did you get that? And how do you apply that to your job?
And first of all, that's a great compliment. I really do appreciate that compliment. And honestly, it's natural. I've always been a very charismatic person growing up. I was very much of a social butterfly in high school. I'd go from one group to the next. But also my background in In-N-Out with the smile culture and the customer's always right culture and taking care of the customer. So having that customer service background and seeing, how you can really make an impact in somebody's life just by doing the small things, that's always been in the back of my mind. My grandfather always taught me there are many jerks out in the world. He used a different tone at the time, but he was like, there are many jerks out in the world. Why be one of them? Exactly. And I've always had that back in my mind too. But I always thought to myself, especially in real estate, you want to be upbeat. You want to be approachable. You want to be somebody where, hey, you know what? Get in, talk to my title rep. He can walk you through this transaction too. He'll walk you through your questions, and he's a great guy. I want them to feel comfortable enough to give me a call. I want you to feel comfortable to give me a call, and knowing that you can refer your clients to me and have me talk to them, and they'll Billy can take care of it. He's not going to be that guy. He's going to take care of my clients very well.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great explanation of that. Now, what is the process of a title search, and why would somebody need a title policy, title insurance?
That's a great question. So, when we start our title search, the first thing we do is we order a preliminary title report. And that's where we go through plans, where we go through public records, and we pull everything that's recorded against the chain of title. And the main things that we're looking out for are certain clouds on title, like a lien or a judgment. The reason why you want to have title insurance, keep in mind, title insurance is a lender's requirement. It's not necessarily a state requirement. It's a lender's requirement. So really, if you're going through a real estate transaction and you have a lender's policy on there, you're working with a lender, they're going to have title insurance. If you're doing all cash, you don't necessarily need to have title insurance, but you are potentially taking on the risk that's recorded against the property. So let's say, for example, you go through a real estate transaction and you have a title policy. We'll identify what clouds are recorded against the chain of title. We'll bring that to the attention
Speaking of clouds, so can you explain what a cloud is?
Yeah, like a mechanics lien. Let's say, for example, you're doing construction work on your property and you're not paying your contractor. They can file a mechanics lien on your property, and that way they're owed their money back.
Yeah, and that has to be satisfied at the sale.
Correct. Well, it can be, yes.
Yeah.
For sure, at the end of the day, we are never going to close on a transaction where a lien or judgment will switch over to the new owner of the property or the buyer of the property. Yeah. There are some situations where, I'll give you guys an example. I worked on a file a few years ago where there were city violations recorded against the property. Half the property was burnt down, and the city wanted them to tear it down and fix it up. So they recorded a city violation against the property. Yeah. Well, the seller's like, I'm not going to spend all that extra money just for us to tear it down and then rebuild because I'm trying to sell it as is. Right. Luckily, an investor came in and said, hey, we'll take on those city violations. We'll allow those city violations to show on our final title policy because we're going to tear it down anyways and build it the way that we want it and sell it the way that we want it.
It'll satisfy
all those code violations. Yep. So at the end of the day, we're never going to just close on a transaction where there are clouds on title like a mechanics lien, city violation, child support judgment, spousal support judgment. Those are very common judgments.
And bringing that up, that's a good point. So I had something come up for one of my clients, and just so people understand, so when they run a title report on a property, they're also searching names. And if your name is a common name, let's say like a John Gonzalez, you can have something pop up and it could be potentially linked to your property. And if it's not associated with your property, that we get that cleared from title, so then we can move forward with the sale and stuff like that. But so I actually had that happen. Billy helped me resolve that issue. So this is a great
Okay, so give an example. I'm one of 3 William Fairchilds in Santa Clarita. All right, there's me, my uncle, and some random William Fairchild that has no relations to me. Yeah. So let's say, for example, if I'm not paying my credit cards, they could file a lien against my name, and then if my uncle goes to sell his property, that lien could appear on his property because, again, there's 3 Williams Fairchilds in Santa Clarita.
Who does it belong to?
Who does it belong to?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why title companies will always require something called the statement of information to be filled out by the sellers. It provides information like their legal name, last 10 years of occupation, last 10 years of residency, and their social security number. When we run the social security number, it's internal. It's not like it goes out to a big database or anything like that. We're just running it to confirm that those liens and judgments are matched to that individual right there. Yep. And if it's not, remove it. Easy peasy, no problem, no foul, done.
Awesome. Yeah. So how far back does that chain of title go that you insure?
Basically, as long as they own the property. So keep in mind, when you have a title policy against your property, it's good as long as you own the property. As long as you don't make any title changes or anything like that. I mean, you can make title changes through a refi, but if you do a quick claim deed, you lose your title insurance policy. But if you do if you get a title policy, then it's good as long as you live on the property. So that's one reason why we like to have title. And, I know we're going to eventually talk about when title insurance can come in and all that fun stuff. But yeah, no, it's good as long as you live in the property.
Good. So some properties have been owned by the same owners for a long, long time. And I've seen these things on a property profile, whether it looks like it was sold to somebody, then sold back, and then back and forth. It's a mess in there. I said, so
those are always fun.
You guys straighten that out?
Yeah, we straighten that out. We always like to follow the chain of title, and then we also pay attention to see how those deeds were taken care of. Like, for example, I mentioned a quick claim deed. A quitclaim deed is something that we want to verify that you did intend to make those changes, because I can go to the recorder's office and record a quitclaim deed and call it a day, and I didn't need to do that, or I didn't, I shouldn't have done that, kind of a thing. So whenever we see a quitclaim deed recorded against the chain of title, there's a good chance that a title company is going to require something called an affidavit of uninsured deed signed and notarized by the person who made those changes, which in some situations, like in events of divorce, it can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because let's say, for example, we go through a divorce situation and one of the spouses was awarded the property. Now I got to do a quitclaim deed to remove that person on title. Okay, now you want to sell that house. Now the title is asking you to have the ex-spouse file or fill out that affidavit of uninsured deed and have it notarized. It's like, well, it's an awkward situation. It's a bad relationship. How can we avoid that? As long as the house is stated in the divorce decree that it was awarded to you, we can go based off of that.
Yeah.
So there are certain situations where we can avoid that affidavit of uninsured deed, but most of the time when we do see that quitclaim deed, we want to get that verified.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But sometimes, I'm going to take it, Josh. On these, not necessarily a trust, but do they have? I know there's scams out there. There's scams and fraud, and like, how do you decipher and pull that apart and tell if something is a scam, so that somebody's property isn't sold, I think, inadvertently to a scammer?
By asking the appropriate questions. As we both know, vacant land sales fraud is very big here in Los Angeles County in general.
Yeah.
So depending on, when did they purchase the property? How much did they purchase for? Why is it selling for this price when, it's sold for this price 2 years ago? Where did that 10 times the price come from? That doesn't make sense to us. Okay, this property was transferred to you in a quitclaim deed. Okay, we need to get in touch with the previous owner and have them fill out the affidavit uninsured deed. Where are they at? Oh, I don't know where they're at. We're not going to transact them because that's a red flag.
Yeah.
If it's in a trust, or another good thing, if it's been held in the trust for 20 plus years. By the way, holding your property in trust, I'm looking at directing the camera for this one. Holding your property into the trust is by far the best way for you to hold title. Just putting that out there. But if it's in a trust for 20 years and all of a sudden it's got removed from the trust, why?
Yeah.
That's a huge red flag for us. If we see that a notary stamp came out of a nursing home, that's a huge red flag for us too. We pay attention to the small details and we want to ask the appropriate questions so that we can avoid those situations.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And that brings up a good question. So Billy does something for me, and I think it's unique to title reps, and I really appreciate Billy doing this, but with a lot of fraudulent, scams going on with land sales and people selling properties that they don't own, some of my clients have reached out to me with those concerns and looking for third-party services and what they could pay for to have somebody continue to monitor, their title and stuff to make sure things aren't changing on them. And I told them, I said, don't do that. I said, I talked to my title rep, Billy. What he does for me is that any of my clients that have any concerns of title is we can get a property profile for them, and Billy will send that over to me, and I will forward that over to my clients that I work with, and then at that point they can reassure that nothing has changed on the title since they purchased the property at that point and save themselves some money. So Billy, thank you so much for doing that. It's resolved a lot of my clients' fears on that side of it. So I really wanted to say thank you for doing that.
Another thing, of course, and another thing I highly recommend for anybody here in LA County is to go to the LA County Assessor's website and sign up for their e-notification service. So what's nice right now is the LA County Assessors recently came out with a service where if you create a portal on their website, they'll provide you with an email notification service within 24 hours if something's recorded against your property.
That's awesome.
Usually what happens is the recorder's office will send you a notice within a couple of weeks of it being recorded via mail. But now LA County is notifying you within 24 hours via email if something's been recorded against your property. So if you see that, oh my gosh, this deed should not have been recorded against my property, you can identify it right away and reach out to the appropriate parties and get it taken care of.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good to know. I wanted to change subject real quick. I'm going back to you and you personally from growing up. So you obviously are very driven and goal oriented and stuff, and getting to know you and who Billy is over all the years that we've worked with each other is you're a very driven person.
Yes.
And, we've had this conversation with past guests is the motivation factor. Who was your mentor growing up, or what pushes you to be so motivated to do this job? Because it's a lot. It's a lot of work. You're not just handling one file. You're handling hundreds to thousands of files with all different things going on. It's like you're a professional puzzle piece person where you're putting all the puzzle or all the pieces where they belong in the puzzle. But what gives you that motivation every morning to wake up and say, hey, I'm going to crush it today and go out and do your best?
First thing is my wife. I always want to be the best for my wife. She's the reason why I work hard. Our future is the reason why I work hard. I always tell her I work hard now so that when we do have children in the future, I can be there for them too, you know? Also, you know, my family, you know, seeing how, you know, we were raised, my parents raised me to be a hard worker. They raised me, I owe everything that I have to my parents, the way that they raised me. My mentors growing up were my teachers. I was very blessed to have really great teachers who looked after me. I was very blessed to have great mentors growing up. You know, my motivation is most of the time, we're all in sales. We know that our motivation is self-motivated. You know, we have to wake up every day and treat this like a regular 9-to-5 job. We don't have to treat it like a regular 9-to-5 job, but we have to. You know, in order for us to be successful, we have to go out of our way and make sure that we treat it that way. You know, we are our own CEOs, we are our own CFOs, we are our own PR, we are our own sales rep, you know, so we have to come up with different ways to provide value. And that was one of the first things that and a real estate owner told me when I first got into title was, what value are you bringing my agents? And that is the one thing that sticks in my head every single day. What value can I provide agents? What value can I provide homeowners? That's why I want them to work with me, you know, build up the relationship, build the great tools and services, provide you guys with services that can take your business to that next level, you know? So that's what I always look out for. And no, the motivation, it really is self-motivated. And it starts, like I said, it starts with my wife, knowing that I want to do best for her, knowing what I want to do best for our family, best for our future. It starts with her and not letting anybody down, you know, knowing that, because at the end of the day, you know, your clients, they rely on you to do your job, just as you guys rely on me to do my job. And if I don't do my job well, then I drop the ball. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like that feeling at all.
No, not a good feeling. Hey, on getting back to the title, AI has been real popular now. Do we have any new AI information for title or new gadgets, gizmos, and technology?
I'm always looking out for that too. There are some AI farming features for real estate agents in particular that can help you guys identify potential sellers, potential buyers, just based off of conversations that people may be having and all that fun stuff. So we're looking into tools and services like that to help grow your guys' business. When it comes to the internal service of it, producing the prelim and all that stuff, I'm sure eventually we're going to have something like that come out. Waiting for those services to come out. I'm, you know, keeping my ears open. We're always on the lookout to see how AI is going to affect our business. But I do think eventually AI will make prelims more automated and more easy for you all to access as well. We're just looking for that feature to come out.
Sure. Very good.
So going back to the trusts
Yes.
that you have mentioned, I think it's important, like you said, you know, if you have a family and you have a lot of assets, things like that, you know, to hold your home in a trust. I think that's smart. Can you give some of the benefits to holding a home in a trust?
Absolutely. Incapacitation, death, you know, I mean, the reason why I always say that is the best way to hold a property into a trust is because it covers those things. If you go to the right person to create your trust, you don't necessarily need to go to a real estate attorney to create a trust. You can go to somebody who specializes in creating trust. But if you go to somebody who can really put together a good trust, it will cover situations like incapacitation. It will cover situations like what happens at death. You know, there's been so many transactions in the past where we will get a power of attorney for a property. Mom and dad are probably in a hospital and they need to sell their house in order to pay their medical bills, but they have the wrong power of attorney. And it's always that uncomfortable conversation that you have to have with them, and for them to understand, like, I understand that you have a power of attorney, but you need to have a different power of attorney in order to take advantage of this. And now, because we don't have that power of attorney, now you got to go through the probate courts and get a conservatorship. You know, now you got to spend money. The money that you could have spent going to a real estate attorney to have that trust put in place
And
time in order for this to go the right way. You know, upon death, you know, the trust will always lay out who can who can take over the estate upon incapacitation and death. It'll always state that, and title will always go based off of what the trust says. If your property is held in the trust and, you know, let's just say, for example, a parent passes away and you need to sell their assets, you don't need to go through the probate process. That saves you time and money. Because I think in probate in LA County right now, it's so long, about 6 month process to a year process.
Yeah. Everything I've seen is like 9 months and longer.
It's rough. I was talking to one of my agents last night and she was telling me that she had one file that lasted 3 years through probate. You know, and you gotta wait 3 years just to sell one asset, you know?
Yeah, then that's a draining value out of the property.
Exactly.
You gotta take care of it or dilapidate or something like that, right? I mean, a lot of these properties are vacant.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
No, you know,
trust is good.
And also, like, you can add people saying, oh, I can add this person as a beneficiary, or I can add this person as a successor trustee without necessarily changing the title of the property, and that avoids reassessment.
Yeah. So, what are some common issues in the when you come across title, and how are they resolved? Different things that come up that you've seen.
Different things that come up, for example, well, when you start with liens and judgments, common liens like I said, mechanics liens or solar liens, your mortgage is a lien. Judgments, child support judgments, spousal support judgments, those are common things that come up. Ways that we resolve them, for example, so remember, title companies, we are the ones that will provide you with a preliminary title report, which will identify what liens or judgments are recorded against the property, right? We'll provide that prelim to your escrow company, and there's the ones that will issue demands to those entities to see how much is still owed on those liens and judgments. And then they'll provide that back to us and say, hey, for this child support judgment, there's still $10,000 left. So at the close of escrow, let's say, for example, the seller is supposed to be netting $100,000 at the close of escrow. Instead of netting $100,000, we'll take $10,000 of that proceeds and pay off the courts so that they can satisfy that judgment.
So get it closed.
Exactly. And then we'll take the rest of the money. Once we close, we'll take the rest of the money, send it back to escrow, and then escrow is the one that will issue the checks to everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So how long does this title insurance cover the home going forward after the close of escrow?
As long as you live in the property. And it's a one-time payment. So there's two policies. There's a seller's policy and there's a lender's policy. The seller's policy is always going to be based off of what the house is selling for, and the lender's policy is based off what the loan is. And the seller's policy, what the seller pays for, and the lender's policy is what the buyer pays for.
So if something came up after the close of escrow, they found out that one of the buildings was built on the property line or on the other side of the property line that they didn't know about, would that be covered, or what happens with something like that?
So in the situation like that, we always try our best to make sure that all things are covered. So if we do notice that there's an encroachment on the property, we will identify that and we'll put that in the final title policy.
It usually gets resolved before.
It usually gets resolved before.
Right.
Yeah. Usually those are things that you see before, and you do a great job of reaching out to us, asking for property lines.
Yeah.
We can only provide what we can provide. I always tell agents, if you want a best way to know where your property lines are, you will have to reach out to the surveyor.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, encroachments, luckily it's very rare when we run into those situations. But there are times when, I'll give you an example. There was a file that we closed on a few years ago, and, there was a loan modification done on the property. The loan was paid down to $160,000, but we didn't catch that because whoever indexed that loan modification accidentally put it on another property. And so when we closed escrow, the buyers received a bill from the mortgage company saying, hey, it was $160,000. And it's like, wait a minute, what? That's not my bill, I don't want to pay for that. They can make a claim towards the title company, and that's when the title company will come in and say, hey, we'll cover that for you. That we understand that wasn't, your issue. That's not what you guys did. We'll cover that for you, and the title company will cover that.
Got it. Yeah, there are a few other common things that I've seen that have come up on a title report that I kind of want to bring up that may be common things that the listeners out there may personally be involved in, or something that they have not experienced, but that they could experience in the future. One of those is if you have a home equity line of credit. So then, and I just experienced this recently on a title report. There was an open home equity line of credit, but there was no balance. But that home equity line of credit still sits on the title report to show that there's an open line of credit revolving there, and that has to be satisfied and closed at that point in time. So that's one good thing for those that have HELOCs out there thinking about selling their properties. If you don't have anything revolving on there, or if you're going to satisfy that and pay off whatever's owed at that point at the close of escrow, just kind of keep in mind that will get called out on there. Another one that I've seen is the charitable foundation for some of these builders. We won't mention the builder's name that we came across, is that every time a real estate transaction takes place for a sale of a property with a specific builder, I'm not going to mention the builder's name, is that they get a 0.000002%, of the sale price, and it's usually
donated to their charity.
To their charity, yeah. And it's usually anywhere from a couple $100s to upwards of like $1,000. I haven't seen anything over that, but it goes on every single transaction. So whoever owns that property, whenever they go to sell it in the future, they're going to be paying towards that.
Where does that come up on the title report, Billy?
They'll probably come up in their It'll probably come up in there. Oh, actually, I don't know. Actually, I got
the prelim.
It should pull up in the prelim. Yeah, it should pull up.
it is-
I've seen
it
it
is
on
in a
another
trust, right?
document
Yeah,
called
yeah,
NHD,
it is there.
and sometimes it comes up there. But I think of the
It's in the prelim.
It'll
It is
probably show up as like in
100%.
their data trust or something like that. It's probably outlined in very small words.
It
in there.
is.
Yeah.
It is. And if you don't know what you're looking at, if you don't know what you're looking at, and like I go through those things and I skim through them because I like to know what's going on there as well. So even though we have the protection of, title looking over those things, and then they summarize everything. One thing your company does that I love is when the title report goes out, an email follows with somebody that reviewed the policy and says, hey, just to call light to these certain sections, boom, 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 the main key areas. And it makes it easy for the owners and the buyers and everybody to kind of understand what's going on. But I saw it specifically there, which caused me to question it. And I said, what is this? And then that's kind of where it came about, came to be. So, for future reference, if you're a buyer thinking about purchasing a home out there in the community and you're working with us, we will fill you in on that info when that time comes.
But that being said, there's another ones out there. All the stuff is recorded against a property.
Yeah.
There's a PACE and Hero loans. You come across those?
Yes. Oh yeah. So that's tied into your property taxes, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's another one. And then the CFD, consumer, what's it called?
The Melrose. It's
It's
like
like
a
Melrose,
Melrose,
the
yeah.
Community Facilities District Tax. I was like, okay. Yeah, so all that comes up there. And it's good to know.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it follows the property.
Yes.
And whoever purchased the property, they're going to get those taxes too.
Yeah. So
So it's good to know in advance before
Well,
it closes.
We could take that for example too, because you don't necessarily need to order a prelim to see those because those are on your tax roll.
Yeah.
And we could provide you with a copy of the tax rolls without having to order a prelim. So anytime you guys have questions or your clients say, okay, can you provide me with a breakdown of my taxes? I want to know what I'm paying for. Or when does this Melrose expire or mature? We'll identify those things. The Hero and PACE loan, usually that's tied into solar, right? You do some sort of property improvement, usually solar. The hard part when it comes to solar is, and this is why I always like to remind real estate agents, order your prelim as soon as you get the listening agreement signed before going into escrow, because we can help identify those potential liens and judgments against the property. And if you have an escrow company that does pre-escrow, they can start working on issuing demands to those parties to see how much is still owed. And when it comes to solar companies, on average, it could take about 15 to 20 business days just to hear back from them, because they're so busy. Same with the courthouses. It could take on average 15 to 20 business days. Now, if we're in a normal real estate length transaction, that's about 30 days, right? That's over half of that real estate transaction waiting to hear back from those entities, right? And then we got to communicate to them again. So let's say, for example, when it comes to the solar, what we normally see is if a buyer takes over that solar, okay, title is going to require a contract termination from the seller, and we're going to need a new contract from the buyer in order to keep the chain of title clean, right? And then we got to go through the process of getting those things done, And at the end of the day, it's just all about those releases too.
Yeah, and that brings up a really good point too, because when you're in the escrow transaction as a buyer, right, and you're buying a property and these things come up on the home, when you're a buyer and you get your offer accepted, you are going to eventually lock your interest rate, right? And if that rate lock is locked and it's going to be set to expire and they're still working on these things and you have to extend escrow for any period of time, that can be at an extra expense of yours, having to, extend that rate lock or whatnot. But so that's another factor too that I think is very impactful. So thanks for explaining that.
Of course.
Very good, very good. So now we're going to get to the deeper side of Billy Fairchild.
Oh boy,
this wasn't deep enough. We told
That's
them
great information.
Yeah, we're grilling.
Well,
We're grilling.
you know what's fun?
That was really great.
And like you mentioned before, just go track back really quick. I like how you said it's like a puzzle piece. It is a puzzle. And I love puzzles. I like putting the pieces together. I like having explanations for everything. That's one of the things I love and I enjoy about my job is that I treat it like it is a puzzle, because to me, sometimes it can be a puzzle.
Yeah, you save that last piece.
Yeah.
Put the last piece in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I usually give my wife for her to put it in, though.
That's a great feeling when you put that last piece
It
in
really
there. It's all
is.
done.
Especially that 5,000 piece one. Oh, boy.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So tell us a little bit something about what you liked to do when you were a kid growing up.
Oh, man. Growing up, I had a big backyard, and I loved playing in my backyard, playing with my dog. We had a little one of those build-up pools back there.
What kind of dog?
It was a golden retriever.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a beautiful golden retriever. I think an Australian Shepherd mixed into there. So it was, he was a great pup. So playing with him, playing with my friends, my family, my siblings and I we were pretty close growing up. So we were so close. Like my sisters and I were technically Irish triplets. So we're born 11 months apart from each other. So when I was held back in the second grade, I was put in the same grade as them, which was beneficial for me because I got to copy off their homework. So that was always nice, you know. So that made my life a lot easier. But no, growing up, it was, you know, always playing in the backyard. That was before we had iPads. That was before we had. I always joke around with people. We didn't have iPads or iPhones when I was growing up. We had Leapfrog. You know, the cool thing about Leapfrog was I had that magical pencil where if I put it on the animal, it'll make the animal noise. You know, that was the cool thing. But you know, playing with my friends, you know, that was really fun growing up.
Play any sports? Growing up?
So growing up, I tried t-ball, I tried baseball, I tried soccer, flag football. Growing up, I was very prone to dehydration. So you know, I didn't really do too much sports until about 7th and 8th grade when I got into track and field. I did hurdles, I did the 800, which was really fun. And then in high school, I did football. And that was a lot of fun. I had a great experience. Got to win CIF championship. You know, beat our crosstown rivals for that one. So that was always the best feeling.
Yeah, you went from dehydration, not and going into something that depletes you.
Yes,
you need to really be dehydrated.
Yeah. And then for football, I was on the left bench, so it didn't really matter for me about being dehydrated because I had my water bottle next to me the whole time, so it was totally fine. I'm an open book. I've got no shame.
I love it, man. I love it.
Good. So you have a lot of energy. How do you relax outside of work?
Spending time with my wife and I, we love to sit down, watch new movies, new shows. We were big into watching shows. Severance on Apple TV, The Studio on Apple TV. We've been waiting 5 years for the new season of Stranger Things to come out.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
forever.
gosh.
It's been taking forever.
I barely remember the plot, if I'm being honest, dude. You know, so there's a lot of good things that we like to watch. We also like to take our dog out for a walk at night, you know, get her exercise and all that fun stuff. And then on weekends, I'll play Call of Duty with my friends. That's where I really put my frustration out, like, oh, you know. But no, you know, spending time with my wife and doing those puzzles and exploring, that's always a lot of fun too.
Very good.
Oh, sorry. One last thing I wanted to add, because you mentioned your wife a lot, and we're friends on social media and stuff outside of the business side of it. And I kind of, what I do with my wife and what I see is what you do a lot with your wife is you travel a lot, it seems like. And I think travel is super important. So you can get out there and see the world, kind of, you know, see other cultures and stuff like that, and experience different things that we're not just seeing in a book that you can actually experience in person. Explain that to me, because it seems like you've been quite a few places and stuff, and it seems like one of your guys' passions that you guys have. So I wanted to open up to that.
We're very fortunate to be able to do that. You know, last year we went to San Francisco for a weekend. I think we were there for 3 nights. We loved it. You know, we were able to walk. Whenever we go to a new city, we like to walk around. We don't like to take Ubers or anything like that. We like to experience the city, so we like to walk around the city. In San Francisco, when we were there, it was very safe. You know, it was we didn't feel like we were having to look over our shoulder or anything like that. So we're very fortunate about that. So we had a great time in San Francisco. We went to Hawaii. We got married. Today's our 3-year anniversary. So we got married.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So we got
awesome.
Thank you. We got married 3 years ago, and we took our honeymoon last year. So we were in Hawaii last year, and that was a great experience. You know. So my wife, she's from Brazil, and you know, I got to go down to Brazil a couple years ago and experience her culture, experience her family, and that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
And
did you go during the festival out there?
No. Okay. So her city hosts the world's 2nd largest Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
So her city was founded by a German explorer back in the late 1800s, and so their downtown center has a very. You ever been to Solvang?
Yeah.
It's just like Solvang.
That's nice.
It has that windmill and all that fun stuff feeling to it. So her city hosts the world's 2nd largest Oktoberfest. But we went for the holidays, which was a different experience because remember, Brazil is south of the equator. So it was summertime and it was hot and humid. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, walk out of our room like, you know, it was so hot and humid. But the experience, the people, it was just an amazing experience. And I can't wait to go back there.
Nothing that a nice cold beer can't solve. Right?
Nothing that a nice cold beer, nice cold Diet Coke can solve. You know, that's how I look at it. But no, we're very fortunate. We love to travel. We like to experience new things. Every year we like to go camping. You know, up in the Silver Lake, off the June Lake Loop in the Mammoth area.
Love Mammoth.
Oh my gosh, that's my heaven. That's my retreat. You know,
Me too. I love it up there.
Yeah, it's
All
the
year long.
best. Oh, all year long.
Yeah, Ron looks for any excuse to get out there.
Honestly, you know, sometimes, you know, when I drive up the 14 freeway and I see that sign X amount of miles to Bishop, I'm like, Mahogany Woods is calling my name.
You know what? I get past Avenue H. I'm thinking, I think I should just keep going.
Just keep going. I'll text my wife like, hey, babe, I'll be home tomorrow.
Yeah, it's only 3 hours up there. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Head to a listing appointment or veer off and go to bed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. So, do you have any special books that you refer to, phrases, quotes, positive, inspirational quotes that you go to? Or
My favorite quote is actually from a movie. It's you could be as mad as a mad dog the way things went. You can swear, you can curse the fate, but when it comes to the end, you just got to let go. That's actually one of my favorite quotes. After high school, my parents separated, and that was around the time I think the movie Curious Case of Benjamin Button came out, which is where the quote comes from. And it's so true. We have one life, depending on how you view and all that stuff. But, live that life. There's no point of hanging on to things. There's no point of bring things bring you down, a lot of stuff. You could be as mad as mad all the way things went. You could swear, you could curse the fate, but at the end, you just got to let go and live your life and be happy. That's how I look at it.
There's a lot of noise out there.
There's a lot of noise.
And you let it go. What is it? Does it matter? Kind of weigh it out. It says, you know what? In the grand scheme, most of the stuff doesn't matter. So just let it go. Right?
Let it
That's
go.
a good one, for sure.
Yeah, and similar to you, my parents separated too at one point, and when I was a young kid, and a lot of that anger, for the first few years after. But similar to you, I always try to find positives in negative situations that occur, and I'm very big on that, as Ron would probably know, Michael, and everybody else around me. Is whatever the negative situation is, there's a positive if you find it, right? And to me, it's like my parents are completely happy, married to other spouses, and they're in loving relationships. And they're like, man, that's the best thing that could have came. That was the best outcome. And like you said, we have so many things that tear us down in this world because it's hard. Living life is hard, right? You like to surround yourself around people that are uplifting, positive, that support you and that root you on and want you to be successful in life. It's like you said, don't let things weigh you down. Let it go. I love that quote. That's awesome.
No, and that's the same. My parents, they're happy now. My dad, he's a happy guy, and my mom, she's happy. And at the end of the day, that's all I care about. I just want people to be happy. That's all that matters.
That's awesome.
That's it. And I want to say one good thing, not one good thing, lots of good things about you, but I want to say you've got a great smile.
Thank you.
And when you smile at people, and in general, everybody smile at people, it just opens doors.
It
right?
does.
Some of the frowns don't work. It's like you don't want, unless you want people to leave you alone, and they will. But if you smile, it opens doors, it opens hearts. And you got a good one.
I appreciate that.
Good. I like
Thank you.
that.
I appreciate that.
So there's a rapid fire question round that we're going to have, and since we are baseball fans, we call ours a quick pitch.
I like it.
All right. So do you prefer car or truck?
Car.
Car. All right. I have car and a truck. It depends if I'm around. I drive around town in a car, but if I'm going to Mammoth, I take my truck.
That's the thing. When I'm working, it's a car for gas reasons, but when I can go camping or something like that, pack into the truck and I'm gone.
All right. I got off my rapid fire.
You're good.
Okay. You prefer inside or outside?
Oh, outside.
Yeah. You go to the beach or the mountains?
Mountains.
That's right. Your favorite comfort food?
Ooh, pizza.
Love pizza.
Love pizza. Yeah. For sure. You have a favorite app on your phone?
Twitter.
Twitter.
You know what? With Twitter, I get the news. I get some really funny memes, some funny videos. So I get it all in there.
Very good. Very good. And the last one, family or work?
Oh, family.
That's for
100%.
Sure. Yeah.
Family comes first.
Family comes first.
And
Family's always going to be
And I
there.
got one last question.
Yeah.
Pineapple on pizza or no pineapple on pizza?
Am I going to be judged?
No. This is you. This
Oh,
is Bill.
gosh. Pineapple on pizza? Okay, hear me out. Sweet and savory to me is really good, all right? Sweet and savory to me can be really good. So please don't hate on me too much. I understand. Listen, I love pizza, but there are times where I want that sweet and savory feeling, and that the pineapple fits in pretty well sometimes.
And there you go, man. I used to be that until I found out I was having allergic reactions to pineapple. So now I can't enjoy it, but I love it too. So
I mean, there's all kinds of good toppings on pizza. I don't think you can go wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, you can definitely go. My favorite right
Anchovies.
now. Anchovies. Barbecue
Jalapeno.
chicken pizza. Oh my gosh, that's always good to call. Oh, I got this place across the street from where I live called the Curry, and it's kind of like to me, it's like an Indian infused pizza kind of a thing.
Oh, I like that.
Oh my goch, it's so good, so good.
Ron's a meat lover. He likes the meat lover ones.
Yeah.
With the sausage, the pepperoni.
Put them all on there.
Stack it up. Awesome.
All right, and nothing good, nothing like a good pizza. All right. Hey, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Billy, how would they do that?
Do I give my number out or
You
what?
give your number, and then we're going to put it in the comments and at the bottom. But you can give a number, you can whatever, however.
It's easy. You either email me, text me, call me. I'm very easy. I'm one of those people where I have 3 unread emails in my inbox. I don't have a 10,000 or plus. I got 3. So that's how it's really easy to get in touch with me.
Billy Fairchild.
BillyFairchild19@gmail.com or wfairchild@ctccal.com.
And throw out a phone number just in case.
661-713-5841.
Awesome, Billy. Thank you so much for being
Thanks,
on.
guys,
man.
for having me. I
Thank you for
appreciate
being
it.
on. So if you like the podcast, give it a thumbs up, press the subscribe button, and remember, for higher expectations and higher standards, choose the Higher Advantage, real estate, sales, and service. Take care, be safe out there, and have a great day.